us to touch on this of unmet needs.
Every couple has got its own unique approach to what they call love.
Welcome to On Your Life talk show with Coach Mamaline.
My God is a consuming fire. He sets me on fire. I am fire. Minister of flames. My God is a consuming fire. He sets me on fire.
Greetings, viewers and listeners, and welcome once again to the Pulpit Beyond the Pulpit On Your Life talk show with Coach Mamaline Chidabayenzi. And we are continuing with the topic of infertility, pregnancy, and infant loss. And today we just want to talk about options that a couple that is struggling to conceive, or a couple that has suffered quite a number of recurrent miscarriages, can consider beyond getting pregnant naturally. So today we want to talk about adoption. We want to talk about adoption. And in the studio, I have with me Advocate Andiswa. So allow me just to let you know what who Andiswa Chavepi is. Andiswa Chavepi is a lawyer. She is with counsel at Centuria, having graduated with a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of South Africa. She has training in business, in personal management, and theology. She is also a pastor with theological qualifications from the Apostolic Bishops Network. She has a strong people-centric personality and is mandate-driven. Andiswa has had business and legal experience, having worked on a few entrepreneurial efforts. She has corporate governance experience, having been seconded to the board of a private-owned clothing manufacturing and branding company. With counsel at Centuria, she works in research and drafting division while heading the corporate social responsibility drive, which motivates their entire team spirit. Her focus is, among others, forever finding ways in which the firm can stay focused on working with the communities around it. She is also a trustee of the Centuria Infinite Trust and an entrepreneur with an eye on the agriculture and food packaging sector. Welcome, Advocate Andiswa.
Thank you.
So today we want to talk of adoption, like we said. Can you help us understand what adoption from a legal perspective is vis-a-vis fostering? Because we also know that there's fostering, is adoption and fostering the same thing. Can you help unpack that issue?
Okay. Adoption would generally put it as in taking in a child.
Okay.
When you take in a child, you are permanently removing them from the setup that they're coming from. So if a child was in a children's home, if the child is coming from another family background, you are permanently removing that child, which means you're now taking over all the legal responsibilities as concerning that child. Whereas when fostering, you can take in a child, say, for a few days, for weekends, holidays, and provide a home for the child. So then the child will still be going back and forth, coming to visit here and there, going back to the family or the setup where they're coming from.
Okay, that's very interesting. So before we go further into adoption, I want us to zero in again on fostering. So what are the circumstances that will necessitate a child to be taken in for a few days, for 2 months, for 3 weeks? Since you are saying this one is not a permanent situation, it's temporary. What are the circumstances?
Okay. At times you'd find that there are children probably who are in homes, family setups. There can be issues where they are like, okay, the most current issues that we can refer to, the issues of children who are being abused within their families. In such instances, children have to be taken out of that community, out of that family. And for a certain amount of time, they have to be placed in a home of safety.
Okay.
So we realize that the government does provide homes of safety for these
Okay.
children,
All right.
but at times they are overwhelmed. And then they have to find alternative solutions for these children. In the meantime, whilst the issues that are being dealt with legally with courts, with the police, and so on. So these are some of the issues where children can be placed back and forth out of safety. And then at times you find that there's children's homes, there are children's homes who have children that they take in from a tender age. There are children that are abandoned. There are children. So from a tender age, some people are coming in, and you find that there are also street children that are taken off the streets. They are brought into these homes, but then these homes again, they are overwhelmed.
Okay.
So now a specific permanent solution, not really permanent, like there's a time where they have to be moved from one place to the other until a permanent solution is found for these children. So children can be moving here and there, being fostered by different families or people who can provide a family setup, a strong background for those children. Unlike in a home where there are just a lot of children, there are children. It's good, it's healthy for someone, for a mindset to grow up within a family setup, to experience that, the love, the care, the protection, and all that under a family setup.
Wow, I think
Yes.
I would want us to come back again at the end to the issue of fostering.
Yes.
So what then is the adoption process in Zimbabwe? Peradventure, Lynn wants to adopt. They are considering adoption with Philip. What's the adoption process in Zimbabwe?
Okay. So the adoption process, it's not really too complicated as people would think. So if there's a prospective couple or even an individual, it's not even really stringent to say only couples can adopt.
Okay.
Even a single person is allowed to adopt. So say the couple, I'll just refer to the couple or whoever the prospective adoptive parent is, they can approach the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare.
Okay.
So in approaching them,
So in Zimbabwe, for those who might not know, where is the Ministry of?
Social Welfare,
Okay.
it's commonly known as Makombe
All
building,
right.
where people go for their passports. There's a section behind the offices where there's a Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare. Those are the offices to approach. So when they approach them, they are given specific forms that they have to fill in. In these forms, there are requirements for prospective adopters. In these forms, you fill in information such as your income. Are you able to provide for the children? You have to prove that you have your finances, you have a specific amount of income to use to take care of this child. You have to have a criminal record cleared, police verified by the police.
Okay.
You need to have people who support you, as in family, friends, church members, etc., who can vouch for you, who know your character standing,
Yeah.
who you are you able to take in a child? Are you able to nurture your character, per se? There's a whole lot of things. There's a list that you are given that you have to comply with. So when you fill in those forms as a prospective candidate or adopter, yes, you are assigned to a probation officer. A
Okay.
probation officer is the one that will come to your home to
All
come
right.
and assess your home to see if it's child friendly, if you are able to provide a serene environment for a child to grow up in. They interview you just to hear, to see psychologically where you stand, because in this day and age, the state can't afford to be giving away children to any person,
Yeah,
any Jack
yeah,
and Jill. You
true.
know, there are so many issues of abuse, issues
yeah.
going around. So they have to make sure that it's the right person. How are they? How do they think? What is the reason behind all this? So it's a process, actually, where you are given. So when you have all these forms, you're filled in the list of requirements, then you also have to fill in, by the way, whether you want a girl child, a boy child, the race, the age, because
Okay.
some people would prefer a child probably who's 5 months and above. Some would prefer a 1-year-old growing up because they don't want to have to deal with diapers and all those things. And then, so all those things, they are requirements. When there's a child, then that suits whatever, whether a boy or girl or gender and the age. This child is then tested. They're taken for tests, routine checkup, health checkups. You know, because you also asked whether you want a child. Do you mind taking a child who has health issues? Do you mind having a child with a disability or even HIV status? Some parents wouldn't want a child. So all those things, you are asked all those questions. So when the child is there, a child is brought into your care, into your home. Then again, this probation officer will continue visiting your home to see how you are adapting. How is the child settling in? Are you still comfortable? Is it going well? And then the process begins. There has to be a court application that is made to our courts, because the courts are the guardians for children in Zimbabwe. They are the ones who know the legal interests for every child, because as an adopter, you can have your own personal interest to say, I want a child because of this and this and this, I failed to conceive. But then now the courts are a neutral zone. They know the rights of children. They know what is expected of a parent. So they tread carefully. It's not just handing over a child, you have the child, that's it. No, they continue to have that relationship with you to see how things are going, how they're settling. Then when the process begins for the court application, that's when the court wants all these documents with the list now, the list where there are people who vouch for you, the list where you have filled in, you have proven that you can take care of the child. If you are a married couple, the marriage certificate, you know, police clearance.
So all
that
this
you
is
have no
happening.
criminal
Sorry,
record.
advocate. All
Yes.
this is happening when you already have the child with you. The court application.
The court application comes, yes, when a child has been placed in your care.
All right, that's fine.
Yes, because initially you have all these other requirements that you have to fill before they give you a child.
Okay.
And then now they have to see whether you can really, are you in for it? Are you really sure? And then when they really see, yes, you are sure, you really want to keep going, the court application is made.
So it means you are also given grace period, if I understand you very well, that
Yes.
maybe you might change your mind and say, I may not want the child. I don't think I have the capacity to. It's
I
allowed.
would like to believe, I wouldn't say it's allowed per se, but they just need to give you room to make sure you that's the standing, that's the approach you have taken.
Yes.
Because I think it really takes a lot for someone to get up and say, no, I've made up my mind.
Yeah.
So once a person has made up their mind, most of the times it's a firm standing that they've taken. They know they want the child, there's no going back. So I think the grace period that's there is to make sure that as a new parent, are you coping? Generally, even with biological children, you need time to cope, to learn the ropes, to fall into place and everything else.
Okay, so you can continue from the court application.
The court
What happens?
application now, that's when the probation officer takes all those documents and hands them over the court. The court will then assess to see all the legal requirements have been met. If they have been met, they take in the couple, or we just say the couple. The couple is also taken to court. And in court, the magistrate can still also ask certain questions just to make sure this is really what you want.
Yeah.
If it is what you really want, then that's when a court can grant the adoption. Once the adoption has been granted, that's when a child's name can be changed. The child is now taking over the adopter's parents' surname. You can also give them a new name. That's when there's new birth certificate, there's a new everything, and you're given a court order. Now the child is yours permanently. So whether you take care of the child and die later on, they inherit everything as per your child. There's no more adoption. They are now your child legally.
Wow.
Yes.
That's very interesting. So maybe let's go, because from the way you were unpacking everything, I'm trying to think, how long does this, someone is asking, how long is this process? So let's say from application to getting the child, how long is that process usually?
We cannot really say usual. It can take more than 6 months.
Okay.
before a child is placed in your care. Why the verification process?
Yeah, I
And
understand.
there's a list as well. You're not the only prospective parent. So there's usually a list. And again, going back to those requirements, have they found a child as per the specific
Yeah.
requirements that you have stated in your application?
So that also can delay
Yes,
the,
can
alright.
delay the whole process.
Okay.
So maybe yes, from 6 months, it might be there's a child as well who's there in a home, who's been waiting and specific needs. It can be earlier. It can also take a long period.
All right. So now from then having the child placed with me to the court order being granted, how long does that process take place as well?
These processes can take up to 2 years.
My goodness. 2 years.
Yes, they
Okay.
can take as long as 2 years.
All right. I understand. So I wanted to, but I think you've already touched on who qualifies to adopt. You've verified that even if you're single, you
Yes.
can adopt and adoption be granted.
Yes.
My
for as
question
long as
is,
you are a
who
major.
qualifies to be adopted?
Well, I would say different scenarios, different circumstances. There are situations whereby they are orphaned children. They have no one, those child-headed families, they can be adopted as well. There are children who are abandoned, where there is no trace of a family at all. They can also be adopted. So different scenarios that can come into play when it comes to adoption. So a relative can adopt a relative, things like that, or you can adopt someone that you have no background whatsoever that you know of where they come from, or they have no family ties.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
I want you to check. How has culture and religion played a part in either instigating or castigating adoption? Because I know, especially our culture frowns on adoption, especially if it's adoption that is taking someone that you don't even know. And all that. Can you?
Yes. Culture plays a major role. Why I'm saying so is because when there's a couple, this couple decides they want to adopt a child. Usually you will then disclose, or whichever way, you will disclose to your family
Yes,
members
yes,
that
definitely.
this is the approach that we've decided to take, right? And in that process, because as a couple, culturally, you're not married to yourselves only. You
Yeah.
have to include other family members, your elders, and so forth. When then you disclose such information, that's when all the other inputs and views come into play. And most of the times, I'm not saying always, they are negative views.
Yes.
Because like you had said earlier, culturally people frown. It's taking in someone that you don't even know where
Yeah.
they come from. So for me, it's quite not really strange. But if I would like to take a look at culture in itself, I think it's been open to adoption.
Yes.
But the way that I'm saying it's open to adoption, it's more accommodative of people taking in children. If you know, in our culture, like Black people, where there are orphans in the family, family sits down, they have a meeting. How do we take care of these orphans? We are more accommodative of extended family, having big families, taking in, covering the gap.
Yes.
But then the issue now comes when it's a child from who is not within the
Yeah.
family now. So perhaps, it's my opinion, I'd like to believe, like you're saying, there are issues to say, hey, mtupo that we don't even know where it comes from, komana karwara
Midzimu
toita
yake,
se,
yeah.
midzimu, issues like that. But I think a child is a child. How so? There are people who have taken in orphans for a very long time. They've never had issues with children being sick. They've never encountered all these things. And then also, when you bring in a child into your setup, into your home, you're taking care of it. This notion of saying adoption, like I'm saying, adoption has been there within our own cultural
Yes,
setup.
yes,
But
yes.
then now this adoption that people think is probably the Western culture, bringing in someone who's different. With me, I'd like to believe it has to be more personal.
Yeah.
If I decide, like now, with my partner or with my husband, that we want to have a child, Do we go about telling our families, now we want to make a baby, now we want? No, because most cases that we have come across now, it's people who want to do it quietly. They don't really want to involve a lot of people. They don't want to involve family. And it's possible to have a child, to adopt a child without even letting the family know. They won't even know. If we adopt a newborn, a 10-week-old baby, how will they know to say, hey, akativigira nombu, hey, akazoli, things like that. It depends on how open-minded you are as a couple. Maybe I should say modern couples. I don't know. It depends on how you go about it. So culturally, there are people who are accommodative, who don't mind. They have big hearts. They don't mind to say, well, if it makes you happy, go ahead. You can what? You can adopt. Then the majority are people who have never adopted. They just create these views in their mind. Say, what if this happens? What if that? They actually think ahead of you, things that you wouldn't mind dealing with as time goes by.
I remember when we were having this conversation with this other couple, and that point came up, and someone saying, "Vacho, vana vano adopta, vane mskanzwa, vano zodai and everything." And I said, you know what? Even your own child, coming from your tummy, anogona kumitiswa, anogona kuita musombo, anogona kuenda kujeri. You understand?
Yes.
So mwana. The capability to do whatever is there. It doesn't necessarily mean kuti nenyaya yakaadopta ndosaka aita muskanzwa.
No, upbringing as well plays a big role as the parents as well. What is the child exposed to? How are you bringing up that child? You see, exactly what you're saying is true.
And then appealing to the pastoral side of you. How has the church embraced, if at all, these conversations are even there at church level?
Exactly. Most of the times I've seen the church is very quiet, very, very quiet on dealing with these issues. So I think religion plays a role in saying they want to try and bring in a solution to say, you can have your own, you can have your own, you can have your own. So
Saka we adoption kaninga kunzi Ishmael.
Yes, you see now. But with the issue yokuti Jesus himself was adopted by Joseph. As a biological mwana wani.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yes. So tikada kuona kuti chayo history ya Jesu chayo factor in all these issues. Adoption chayo. Mwana akaunzwa mu family, he was accepted, akapiwa to Jesus, the son of a carpenter, akapiwa mtupo yokwana, akakura nema siblings ake zvakanaka.
And the Bible even says that we are Gentiles who have been adopted into the family of God.
So with me, I believe it's open to anyone who is open-minded. It's a legal way to go about it. I don't see any problem. It's a good route if you decide you can.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. There are some sentiments, Anditi, that adoptees are mistreated by their adoptive parents, especially when they eventually manage to have their own biological child. Pane vanhu vanotofunga kuti munhu akazoita mwana wake mwana iye hamuzomude, and this child will feel kuti there is a difference between them and that child. From your experience, how true is this?
Like we were saying, these views mostly are brought in by people who are outside this whole issue. From the cases that we have had, I have not had issues. I have not seen issues of parents and children. There are children who have grown up from infancy to university. They actually have siblings as well. And with those siblings, you can never tell until we are told that this child is adopted. So I'm not disputing that there are such cases where there are people, which means generally the person who has adopted a child never had that heart for nurturing. biologically, I have my firstborn. Now I'm having my secondborn. What changes that kind of love to say, now I don't really love my firstborn as much because now there's a secondborn, you see? So if you really have that nurture, that love, what drives you to, maybe it comes back to what drives you to wanting to adopt. Is it because you just want to fill in a gap at that point to say, I just want to have a child, I just want to be seen, I just want to be a mother, or you really want a child that you know you can love and care for? So this goes a long way to see if you're really adopting, do you really want a child because you have a big heart, you have that nurturing love, mother's love, because we can take care of children who are not biologically ours.
Yeah.
We have taken in family, we have taken in relatives, we have taken in, and we treat them as well as our own children. So it's neither here nor there. There are cases, there are some. So I think maybe it would take, like we'd say, maybe social workers, probation officers who deal with such cases, they probably have more statistics as to the cases of abuse, maybe that stem from such relationships. They would
Okay.
have more detail,
All right.
since they then foster that relationship and keep checking on the progress.
Should a couple or a single mom or dad, like we have highlighted that single parents can also adopt, at what stage or should they reveal to their child that they are adopted? And if yes, at what stage, at what age?
I believe it's always a good thing to inform a child.
Okay.
The stage, there wouldn't be really a good stage, but preferably an earlier stage, as early as possible. Even at social welfare, the probation officers encourage couples or whoever adopts a child to disclose to their child that they adopted. You wouldn't want, or
So
people
how
wouldn't want
early
a
is early? 6
scenario-
years, 2 years, 4 years, 5?
As soon as a child starts understanding, at times maybe if they can start to understand things at 4 years, depending on the maturity of the child. Not that a couple can delay telling the child because they're saying the child is not yet mature and use that to prolong disclosing the information. But usually, even some psychologists will say as early as 4, a child can start understanding. So bit by bit, you start talking about adoption so that the child is comfortable. Their self-esteem is not brought down. They are comfortable to say, no, it's natural. It's things that are easy to go with. It's not something that's a secret. There's nothing to be ashamed of. So when you speak of adoption openly, then a child is comfortable. It's natural to them. There's nothing wrong. They are happy within the family. And we wouldn't want children finding out from someone else. It would usually hurt them. They start having questions. They start wanting to know, oh, so why did they not tell me? Is there anything wrong with me? Why did my parents even abandon me? Or who are my parents? They start having all these trust issues. Okay, let's say trust issues. So they can easily trust you at an early age when you disclose such things to them.
Okay. And then I wanted to find out, since you have also dealt with adoption cases, have you ever had cases where now the child, I have revealed to her, you were adopted and stuff, and then at some age she starts wanting to find out who are my real parents? What happens in such a scenario? Are you supposed to encourage them to look for their real parents, or?
Okay, this is now, it depends on the family where the child is. Usually because a person is always inquisitive. They want to know the story behind the story. They want to know what happened, what is this. So I think if you are truthful from the onset, there shouldn't really be an issue with telling the children the background of the story, what happened, when and how. The only issue now is if this child is coming from a family setup, all ties are usually cut when they are adopted. So now it's up to the parents to say, okay, do you want our child to go back again and connect with the other family? I believe it's a family discussion. They just have to talk and engage their child and see what's best for them at that point in time. So it would depend on the family. Some people don't mind, yes, having to tell their children their background and having to go back with the children to their parents or biological family. Some don't mind.
All right. I know that in the West there are open adoptions. Is there such a thing in Zimbabwe as an open adoption?
Whereby there's well, it also depends again. There are scenarios where a person can adopt a child, right? When you adopt the child, they are coming from a home where there's a mother. We actually have a couple that wants to adopt a child who is coming from where there's a mother. This child at the point in time is alternating. During school, when schools are open, she stays with the adoptive parents because they are the ones who cater for everything.
All right.
Then school holidays, she goes back to the parent. But then now they want to adopt this child and still the child continues the relationship with their mother. They don't want to take it completely or uproot her from her family. So these are possible in Zimbabwe. Yes.
All right. Interesting. Can we say Zimbabweans have embraced the culture of adoption as a nation?
Well, I would say a few people, actually most people, if you ask them about adoption, they're surprised. Say, in Zimbabwe, is there such a thing?
Yeah.
Adoption. They see it on television, on TV programs. They don't know. Most people don't know these things happen. So it's been kept under the wraps for so long. Or maybe it's because it's a private issue as well.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to expose your child because most people are not accommodative of such children. They start labeling them to say, this one is adopted. This one is like this and that. So there are very few people who are open to it, who know it exists. But generally, I would like to assume, no, they're not really open. Yes, Zimbabwe.
Yeah,
Yes.
I understand like what you're saying, but it's a private matter. But I think we also need to take advantages of platforms like this. Like we said, there are people who have been trying years and years. And I believe adoption can be an option. This is why we are having this show to say, you know what, you can consider adoption as an option. Yes. We are running out of time, but I just want to go back to the issue of fostering. This moving of child from this to the, doesn't it affect a child psychologically or something? Because they are moving 2 weeks, she's here, 3 weeks, she's here.
Psychologically, I believe a child has to be rooted in one place. So putting them in one place, uprooting them, it should be an issue because there is no suitable accommodation or housing issue. It's not really a housing issue. It's about a family setup at that point in time. But the ideal would be the children's homes that are available. If a child is taken into safety, they are taken into safety at a specific place where they know the child's needs, where they know a child needs psychological issues that have to be dealt with, unlike just any other family. Of course, there are people who are there, they are willing to take in children, they are willing to take care of children, but moving them from one point to another, like you are saying, it wouldn't be really a good idea for a child.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Advocate. I mean, that was very informative. And I believe if you are watching this podcast and you are considering adoption, do make sure that you get in touch with us. We can connect you with Advocate because I understand your firm. You also deal with adoption cases, so they can also help you to adopt. And wow, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So normally we close with the word of prayer. Maybe you can just close us out with the word of prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this afternoon session. Lord, I'm praying that whoever was meant to receive this message is out there and has received it, oh God. Lord, let whoever is meant to receive it, Father, receive it gladly, and Father, and take a bold step and a new step to establish their lives the way that they have purposed and that you have purposed for them. In the name of Jesus, we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you once again, Advocate. Viewers and listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I believe this session was very informative and you've learned one or two things about adoption. Adoption irikuitika mu Zimbabwe and Makombe. To find out more details in the social welfare department, you can also get in touch with Advocate Andiswa through Zim Daily. We can then connect you. So until next week, Thursday, we are out for now, and a special appreciation to the entire scenes behind the scenes, the crew behind the scenes. It's adios for now.
I am